What's the word? Welcome back into another episode of the Not Safe for Sunday podcast. My boy's back. Woo! My boy's back.
He's back in town.
Give me that clap track.
Yeah, clap track.
Clap track.
My boy's back. He's a dad. He came with some swag today. Ooh,
So
what's up, Daniel?
They call me daddy now.
You gotta call me daddy. You gotta call me dragon. What's up, man?
I've had the least sleep I've ever had in my life.
I feel you. I feel you, dog.
So Ken thinks I'm a little bit, have a little bit of an attitude or an edge today,
A little
but
bit.
no, just no sleep.
Just a dad.
No sleep will do that to you.
Yeah.
So I'm on mission. I call it no attitude. It's mission. Mission
I like
driven.
that. I like that. Ken, what's up, dude?
Not much. Another day. Doing great. Great to have our boy back here. The little faces on a stick didn't really do it. Didn't do it for me. Oh, there it is. There he is. He's back.
Danny.
It was fun while it lasted, but he's back, and so it's the real thing's better.
Yeah.
I have to interject. I did listen to the podcast while I was gone on my paternity leave, and I have to clear the air. Ken did purchase this
there it is, though.
for me.
The
The
book.
truth about Santa Claus.
I'm so glad
And
you
you know
found
it's
it.
so funny? I opened the first page, right?
Is it described
The
by
house
me?
creaked again. Daniel's eyes popped open.
Oh,
That's the name
That's
about
the name of the kid.
No way.
The story's about.
No way.
They're telling him that Santa's not real, dude.
No.
And his name's Daniel.
Oh, man.
Wow.
I couldn't believe
It was
it.
meant to be.
I couldn't believe it.
I thought you were going to come with some other
Look,
heat,
it's
like
signed,
he
it's signed
it.
by Ken.
Oh,
Right
yeah,
here.
that's what I
it is
thought you were
not.
coming with.
No,
Yeah.
it is
To
not.
ruin Daniel's childhood forevermore.
See,
Yeah, dude.
listen,
Right there.
me and Deb Marks,
Let it be known.
who may or may not be your mom, we put this we put this to rest
Unconfirmed.
last episode. We had it out. We made our peace. Okay, we're good.
We're
Yeah.
past it.
I didn't buy it.
The worst thing about this was in the church bookstore.
See,
We
I
had a
don't-
bookstore, and this was
I
there.
don't even remember that.
Oh, I remember it, dude. You ruined my childhood.
That's it, dude.
Honestly.
That's why he's so angry.
Yeah, I
today.
think it is.
We just need to clear the air.
Here, I
Oh,
thought
He's
he
not
did.
allowed anywhere near my daughter.
Here, I thought he didn't have any sleep, and now it's just because he found the book.
Found the book. And-
You unmatched. You unzipped certain wounds in my childhood.
oh, no.
I don't want to unzip anything with you.
Keep everything zipped.
Keep it zipped over there, guy.
Keep everything
I was
zipped
trying to
up.
think of the word. And zipped is the one what came to mind. I don't even know, dude.
Oh,
No sleep. No
my-
sleep. That's my excuse.
Definitely.
Keep everything zipped up, please, boys.
Let's keep it zipped.
In the booth, we got my boy Spencer Wizard Kelly Berriman.
I'm here.
What's up, dude?
Yeah,
Right up on the mic
there
today.
Yeah, I like
Oh,
that.
Voice sounding smooth
He's
like
learned.
butter.
Yes,
what?
sir.
10 episodes in, figured it out. You got to talk into the mic.
That's
Took some time. It did.
nice.
We're here now.
We're here.
On the video, we got Johnny Digital. What's up, guy?
We're always here.
Always here.
Always
It's a
here.
constant.
They are men of many
So
words.
I gotta
man.
ask, I missed this whole nickname thing. Do we all have nicknames now, or is it just the booth
Yeah,
guys?
we can't tell you yours on the episode.
Yeah,
we gotta
that's
say
right.
that for off the
That's
air.
right. I thought it was Daddy.
It is. Nah, the nicknames just happened. It was kind of just a thing that happened.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it. Johnny Digital, Wizard Kelly.
Hey, real quick, dude. New threads. Where'd you get the shirt? I love it.
Beacon. This is from Beacon Threads.
Beacon
dude.
threads. I just
Love
noticed
it.
the peace sign, and then I
Peace
see
sign.
was it first?
Second
Oh,
Thessalonians.
second.
3:16.
Nice.
Peace.
Nice.
Can you quote the verse?
It's something along
Putting
the
you on the
lines of
spot.
the
I bet it has to do with peace.
yeah. There's definitely peace.
May the God of peace.
Yeah, the God of peace, bring
Yeah.
you peace in all things, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah,
There you
something
go.
along those lines.
I dig it.
Yeah, something along
Good
those
stuff.
lines. I had to dig that one deep. Jake.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
don't memorize things like
I was
that.
just busting
very good.
chops, dude.
I can memorize all of every SpongeBob quote, but I can't memorize the Bible for some reason. I'm an idiot. Hey, but today we're in the midst. I gotta not go low. We're in the midst of a very strange, I think, political season. Definitely, I know Ken's been around a little longer than both of us, but definitely the strangest political season I've ever experienced. So we're kind of rounding third and heading right into the election, the presidential election of 2024. So there's just a lot of things that I think are being kind of debated about between many people, not just Christians, but I think there's a lot of things that Christians are really kind of debating amongst themselves or on across the aisle, I guess, let's say. So we wanted to touch on a few of those things, and I mean, I'm really not a politics guy like that. So, yeah, I mean, let's kind of kick it off.
Well, I'll say this, and not just to show how old I am, because it's really not that long ago.
Yeah.
But I think politics has been strange since 2000 with when George W. Bush was up against Al Gore, and it couldn't be decided for weeks because
Florida.
It came down to Florida, and it was separated. Like from then on, to me, it's just been so bizarre. Not, so before that, was I really into it or following it? I don't know, but it just seemed very normal. And then after that, it just seemed strange, and it's been crazy ever since.
Yeah. Because that part hasn't even happened. The election part hasn't even happened. But before we even got to that, obviously Joe Biden, he dropped out, and the Democrats nominated Kamala. I don't even know how to say
Kamala, I think.
Spencer, you'd appreciate that.
First time.
We're gonna
keep circling back.
Yeah, we're gonna
to
circle back to that. We're gonna pay that one off a little bit later on. But yeah, so the Democrats nominated her, and obviously Trump is the Republican candidate. So there's been a lot of things said, a lot of things happening, a lot of different ideas bouncing around of politics and things
concepts
like that.
of ideas.
Yeah, ideas and concepts of ideas. Nothing really feels like it's been fully formulated, I don't think. But I guess as a Christian in this time, and just maybe not even just this time, but throughout the political seasons and when presidential elections are coming on, I guess I'll kick it to you, Ken. Like, what's something, or where can we start? What's a good jumping off point for kind of how to navigate these times as a Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just tough to navigate in general because politics, it breeds compromise no matter what. And we as Christians, we who really subscribe to the Word of God, know that there's no compromise like on certain things, especially when it comes to objective truth and the truth of the Word and who God is. So when you have something that just invites, the very nature of politics invites compromise, because you have these guys, these ladies who are running, and they want to get elected. Yeah. And so there's certain positions, there's certain policies and things like that they won't compromise on, but then they know, okay, I need this vote. I need that vote. I need that vote. So I'm going to kind of squeeze over here to the right or the left or the center or wherever they go. Yep. And so it just invites compromise. And I think, I don't know why, and maybe it goes back to 2000 when it just seemed like everything hinged on who's going to be elected, and it's like life or death, and like the whole direction of the country. It just, the vitriol and the rhetoric just got so amped up and has continued to be so that now politics, to me, it spilled into everything.
100%.
Everything is politics now. Right. Like the way I was thinking about it today was like, I just think about something dumb like movie critics or media personalities and things like that. It's like, you can't, like, you want to go see a movie or whatever, or there's a new show out, you can't even trust the critics anymore, because depending on like what publication they write for, if it's real liberal or it's real conservative, it's like they have to have this certain bend. Like angle, they can't be objective. It has to come from this angle. It has to be this way. And so now you got to go to Rotten Tomatoes and see the audience score, because that's the only way you're going to get an objective view, and you'll always see it, the difference. 90% on audience score. 47, on
the acolyte, on like a 6%.
Yeah, like on the critic score, or vice versa. It almost never lines up, because it's like there's no objectivity anymore. Yeah, everything is politics. Everything is identity. Everything is a camp, and it's like, how do you navigate that? How do you move on?
I think that spilled over, into the news too. Like, the news is 100% like, it stopped being news. I don't know how long ago, maybe back when Nixon was president, but the news just stopped being news. Now it's just these people's opinions on a subject. And instead of coming with, like you said before, factual truth, like it's what this person's opinion, what this pundit's opinion is.
Spin. That's the word, right?
Yeah,
it's spin. Everything is spun now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like and it's spun towards the agenda that they're trying to push, and there's this divide that's kind of started, or maybe has been around for a long time, but now it's if you're you're a Democrat, you're a leftist, you're 100% like liberal about everything.
Yeah.
Everything is liberal, and then if you're a Republican, it's now you're conservative. You're 100% conservative. So if you identify as either one of those, now you're consuming all liberal media or you're all consuming all conservative media, and it's spilled over into every aspect of life.
And the way it's spun now, it's like you almost feel like bad about having your own opinion because now like the whole identity politics thing where it's like, well, if you're this, you're either white, you're this, you're that.
Right.
Or if you're this, oh, you're either black, a minority, or it's like a woman or an educated woman, an uneducated woman, an educated white man, it's like everything now is like just because of the way that, statistically they're trying to like reach every demographic and they're trying to grab that vote. So everything now is broken down into identity. I can't even be me anymore. You can't be you. Nobody can be anybody because it's like I'm going to be pigeonholed or I'm going to be plastered as I'm a this. You know what I mean? And if that's not painted in a positive light, oh no, maybe I shouldn't be this. Maybe I should go over here. It's just so hard. It's so hard. We lose ourselves. I think we lose our identity. We lose our truth. We lose, what we feel strongly about.
And we've been talking about identity so much lately, and it's like, I feel like now more than ever, people's identities have fully gone into their identity and where their politics stand. A Democrat, Republican. And it's become so a part of their nature that it's like if you are to offend that part of them, you're cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
Cancer culture. You're canceled. How dare you have a different opinion than me? Unfortunately, we live in an environment where you can't even have a differing opinion. You can't even have a differing opinion than somebody that's constituted as hatred, essentially. Because I disagree doesn't mean I love you any less. Right? Doesn't mean that we can't disagree and still continue friendship. But unfortunately, the division has gotten to such an aggressive point that now it's like friends and family are literally dividing and splitting over where they stand on certain subjects or where they align and who they align with in a political sphere.
Right.
And it just feeds into the world and the delusion of the world right now that we just know is just spiraling out of hand, which is no surprise to us.
Yeah. That's the part of politics that I've never liked, and probably the reason why I'm really not into politics is 100% that division. Like it feels like politics were just made to divide people, put them in a box. You're in this box, you're in that box. Now you guys debate about it, and you hold up your signs about what you believe. You hold up your signs about what you believe, and winner take all. And as Christians, I think when it comes to this stuff, because if we're talking about super conservative or super liberal, I think there's things that biblically we have to be conservative about, but I think there's also things that we can be liberal about too.
Sure.
So how do we find that middle ground, and how do we kind of take what these candidates are saying and what they're doing, what their platforms are, what their policies are, and we just navigate through all the nonsense, all the BS to try get to the truth of what's really important.
Yeah, I think what's tough is that there's such a, think about it. These people are supposed to be elected as public servants.
Yeah.
That title, or at least that job description, went out the window a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
Because it's all about power.
Yeah.
It really is all about power. So it becomes like an all or nothing. So it's hard to be objective. It's hard to let me look at both candidates and see what I like about each one, and so I can really make an objective decision.
Right.
Because now they paint it's like so extreme that it's like, if I dare like something from this other candidate, I'm going to be blasted or
ostracized,
or I'm going to be ostracized. Right. And so it's like, it's really like the all or nothing. And I think it's designed, I'm going to be honest, I think it's designed to be like that. I think identity politics, which a lot of people blame Obama for, but I honestly think it started before that. I think for Republicans and conservatives, I think they have really used Christians and Christian conservatives
100%
to really galvanize their own party, and they've really kind of built a platform on them, and so it becomes this thing where it's like, oh, you're a Christian, you have to vote this way.
Right.
Like what do they call it? The religious right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so they just harness
now
that.
You just literally put everybody into that one box.
Exactly, right. And so then like you just harness that and you try to ride that to victory, and because it's really all or nothing. There's no more objectivity. And then on the left, it's the same thing. I mean, minorities and people like that maybe are considered victims or who have been victimized. And it's like we're all in on them, and so they're harnessing and trying to ride that to victory the whole way. And so it's like again, we lose ourselves and we lose our our mind, we lose like our critical thinking, we lose objectivity is what I'm trying to say. And so it just becomes very hard when it's not about the good of the country anymore or the good of a state or city. It's really about the power. Who holds the power?
Right.
There's so much money involved that drives it like crazy.
Right.
And so because they know whoever's in power, all those dollars are going to come in.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to drive policy.
Well, that just kind of brings up something, and I don't know how much you guys actually know about this, but like the Project 2025, right? That's exactly what you're talking about. It's giving the president way more power than they've ever had in the history of the presidency. Like, and I get it. You are as far as America goes, the most powerful person in America, but there's still supposed to be checks and balances so that it's not one guy just or a woman, whoever, just saying this is how I'm going to do it, and if you're not going to be on board, then you're not going to be in my America, part of my America. You know what I mean?
So divisive.
Yeah, it's divisive. It's dividing like big time.
I think something huge is everything has kind of become a weapon for political gain, and so it's identity, like you said. It's using using those who would be classified as victims. It's using people as weapons, but also I think even our education system has become a weapon to be used. And so being in the education system, in my experience recently, especially through the heat of the last few elections, it was a pretty crazy environment, even in the school. Now, I remember growing up, like when elections came, there was an objectivity that our teachers would stay objective. They would not choose a side, because it's really not a teacher's job to push an agenda or push a side.
Right.
It's a teacher's job to educate children on how to make a decision for themselves.
Yeah.
How to take the facts, reconcile them, and choose what they want to support. And being in a high school setting, the last couple of elections, that has gone out the window. Objectivity has gone out the window. There is such an agenda pushed in the school system, and it's very unfortunate and it's very sad because I would teach current issues. I was a history teacher. I also taught school to career, different things, but I got to have a lot of open dialogue and free conversations with kids. And so when it came to current issues in history classes, I would always, no matter what angle a kid brought, I would always play devil's advocate. So if they came from a conservative angle, I would pose a liberal angle.
Sure.
If they came with a liberal angle, I would pose a conservative angle, because it's my job to get a student to think and teach them how to make a decision, not teach them what to think, but teach them how to think.
Right.
And so unfortunately, everything has become a weapon for political gain. And it's a very sad environment to live in. And no wonder kids are under so much pressure, because even from a very young age, they're dragged into this identity politics and they're dragged into all this chaos. And it's like they're just going to, at this point, just regurgitate anything that's been dumped down their throats and shoved and pushed down their throats.
Yeah.
And it's a very sad weaponization of politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bias is so built in now that it's like they're, like you're saying, who critically thinks anymore? Like, do you think people really do like a hard mind change when it comes to political season?
No.
We've talked about this when we talk about social media and the fact that it's an echo chamber and these just nonsensical debates and arguments that go back and forth and back and forth. It's like, do you really think like you're going to change somebody's mind, by just like tearing them up and like just like destroying them and their views and all these things?
1/1,000,000th of a chance, I think.
Yeah,
changing someone's mind.
The bias is already so built in because we've lost public dialogue. We've lost public debate. Even the debates on TV, they're really just, they're so, not only are they pretty boring, but it's so canned. It's just like they're just regurgitating talking points,
Right.
lies, you
Yeah.
know, that
Right.
you know, just like that people will believe.
They're
or
eating
if-
cats and dogs.
They're eating cats and dogs, you know, whatever side you're on, you're just lapping it up,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And, but there's really no good public debate. There's really no discourse anymore.
Right.
It's just talking points. Whatever can be a soundbite.
Yeah.
You know, if I can get a good
What's the
soundbite in.
clickbait- Like, what's that
Right.
clickbait soundbite that we can use and that's going to feed into what my party's looking for?
Absolutely.
But what's crazy is people eat it up.
Yeah.
They eat that stuff up because they have all these people working on these speeches and what the talking points are, because they know, all these people, they're gonna eat it up and they're gonna run with it. They're gonna believe now that there's people out here eating cats and dogs, and they're gonna run with it, and then it's gonna become a thing that we can build off of, and it's for all those talking points. So I guess what I would ask is, so as a Christian, as a believer, how do we kind of navigate our way through this, and like what things should we be looking out for? So like Daniel said before, we can make a better decision. We can start thinking for ourselves and not just regurgitating the things that we saw in that 30-second TikTok clip that told me like how to think. How do we start thinking for ourselves? What are the things that we start looking at?
I will say I have seen more missing cat posters lately than ever before, and I'm not even joking about that. It just seems like they're everywhere now.
Yeah.
But hey, we'll leave that there.
Yeah. This guy. That's because there's probably some guy that's like, I'm just gonna staple these up because I know it's gonna get people going. Dude, I'm telling you,
Maybe.
it's a conspiracy.
Maybe
Have you seen that remix of the quote? It's
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
The Kiffness, I think he does that whole remix of they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs.
Yeah. I think I saw that today.
Pretty dang, and we'll post the link or something.
Oh, my
There you
Lord.
go. I'll speak for myself for a moment, just because as a pastor and how I speak to a broad audience a couple times a week, and I don't get super political just because of how divisive
Right.
politics is. And not that I'm afraid to wade in or anything like that, but it's not like it used to be, because it's almost impossible to have, you know, like a good, polite, spirited discourse. It's already, people already get tense. They already get fired up the
Right.
second you say something. I mean, just people mentioning Trump. You know, Trump is such an enigma.
Him who shall not be named.
An enigma, really, because he's the
Polarizing,
biggest
dude.
lightning rod
Yeah.
that this country probably has ever seen in history, ever. And I don't necessarily blame him for that. He is who he is. He
Yeah.
definitely is brash and inappropriate and a lot of things, but he also reveals so much about the divide that exists in this country
Yeah.
just by his very presence, the very fact that he's alive. Now think about this, right? He's been a public figure for a very long time, right? He's been successful in just about everything that he's done.
Yeah.
He was a TV producer and a TV star, and that show was #1 for a while. He's obviously a businessman, real estate mogul, and all these things. And he was pretty neutral as far as public opinion and who he was. The second he went into the political ring, he became the devil himself, the Antichrist incarnate. You know, and so it revealed so much about people that as soon as things become political, you know, if you don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, you're fine. Once you like really put a line in the sand about something, the lines are drawn up, the battle lines are drawn.
Yeah.
So when it comes to church, because of just how divisive it is by nature, you know, I don't talk about it a whole lot, but I do definitely advocate that people would vote. I mean, this is our civic duty, as the cliche goes.
Yeah.
This is our civic duty, which is 100% true. The vote and the election has a consequence. I will say that people have it totally backwards, and that they should pay way more attention to their local elections than the national election, because local elections have consequences that you're going to feel way before the national election, and all that trickles down, because your city councilor decides your budget for your city. That affects you, and then directly that's the school system for your kids. That's municipal services, that's police, that's fire,
and the participation is abysmal.
and it's abysmal. It's like 8%.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't even think it's
so
8.
low.
I don't even think it's 8.
When it's
Sometimes it's 5 or 4.
Yeah.
I want
yeah,
to
when
say.
it's a local election, just everybody stays home.
Yeah.
Why? Well, it's not on TikTok, it's not on Facebook, it's
Right.
not catching headlines, not in the commercials, and so I don't pay attention. So that's where I'll start with that, is that people should be involved, they should be serious, they should have an opinion, but you need to reverse it. Start locally and then work your way up from there. And so I do encourage people to vote and engage people, but I don't assume who they're voting for or who I think they're voting for just by the fact that they go to church.
Right.
You know, I think people might say it's a church, so more than not, they're conservative, they're going to vote Republican. That might be true, but I think it's more divided than you think.
For sure.
Which is fine. You know, I mean, this is America, and you are free to have your your political affiliation, your opinions.
Right.
It's probably more divided than people think, but nobody's going to say it for the most part because they don't want to get into that fight and that divide. But I definitely say vote. You know, vote your conscience. Learn what the issues are. Learn what the policies are. Learn what these people stand for, and then go out and vote. You know, that's why this democratic republic that we live in is so great.
Yeah.
I think voting is so underrated because I will say that one of the last elections that it was so divisive, but then there was people that had such strong opinions, and I asked them if they voted, and they said no. I'm like, you're not even entitled to your opinion then. You didn't even vote. So why's your mouth running?
Yeah.
Like, shut your mouth unless you're going to vote. Vote, let your voice be heard, and then speak, and your voice will have merit. But if you're not participating in the politics, and to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, oh, they're both morons, they're both idiots, or this is all so stupid, like I can't even bring myself to, there's so much to know, and I can't even bring myself to learn about it. You know, it doesn't take that long. How much time do we waste? Like, just take a look at a couple of the major topics and say, all right, where would I stand on this? Like, don't even look at where the politicians stand on it, but what do you feel like you would say if you were a politician, or if you had the right to make your own government, where would you stand on these things? And then figure out which politician leans most towards that. It's not going to be perfect, but, educate yourself. You can't just blindly vote just based on whatever social media is saying, whatever the news is saying, whatever your friends are saying, whatever family's saying. It's like, oh, my parents were conservative, so I'm just going to vote conservative. My parents were liberal, I'm just going to vote liberal. Right. My spouse, like, I couldn't care. I mean, my wife, I love her to death, but she couldn't care less. She's like, so who are we voting for? Like, we're driving to the booth, and she's like, so who are we voting for?
Who's running? Who's even running?
She's like, I don't even know what's on the ballot. And I'm like, oh, Brianna, I love you to death, but please educate yourself.
The reason people don't vote is maddening, because it's like you just said, like, the people who seem to complain the most are the ones who don't vote. I mean, they're pissing and moaning about everything.
My vote doesn't matter.
But my vote doesn't matter. Who cares? It's all, they just want my money and all that.
Yeah.
But then it's the other people, and I find really for Christians, this is the reason they don't vote. Because, Christians, and in our last couple episodes, we were talking about, your liberty and your participation level and things like that. And Christians have this thing a lot of times to be all or nothing.
Definitely.
And so if the candidate has one issue, 2 issues, 3 out of their 20 that they don't agree with, oh, my conscience won't allow me to vote. And so it's like they cut off their nose to spite their face. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, no, I can't do it because, well, they have this position. Well, like I said in the beginning, politics is all about compromise. Yeah. Just because you vote for somebody doesn't mean that you necessarily stand with them on every single issue, but it does mean that you're participating in this democratic process and that you understand that what the policies that they do support, those are the ones that you probably want there. You need to vote either way. You know what I mean? And so, the lack of participation is maddening. It's I don't want to go, oh, it's a shame on you. You live in America, but yeah.
Shame on you. You live in America.
Okay, you'll go there. You'll say it because in a lot of countries, you don't even have this choice. You know what I mean?
I would just say that I hope that the people that are voting and because it's a big responsibility, right? That it's our responsibility to make sure we're going out and we're letting our voice be heard, whether it be locally or for the big one, for the presidency. But if you're comparing the candidates, and I hope you're comparing them against what you truly believe in, and I hope that you truly believe in the Word of God. I hope you are comparing what these candidates are saying, what they're doing, their actions, and you're holding them up against the Word. And like you said before, it's not going to be that 100% they're going to do everything by the Bible. Mm-hmm. But if there's big issues that you have, well, I hope you're holding them up against the Word and then making your decision, because it's the same thing. We brought up pastors before. It's the same thing for your pastor. Your pastor can go up there and say anything on a Sunday.
Sure.
I think Daniel said this a few episodes ago. He can go up there and spew anything he wants to spew.
Yeah.
If you're not going and holding it up against the Word, well, you're going to get led down the wrong road, because you're not even willing to put in the work to figure out if what this person's saying true, or if it holds up to the values that you have. If this is where your values lie, well, put a little research in, put a little work in, and say, all right, this is where my values lie. This is what this person believes. Am I okay with that? And maybe that'll help. I don't know, but I think that's gonna be key for a lot of people, especially a lot of Christians. Like, especially if in this time where you don't know which way to go and things like that, it's gonna be key to use that as your roadmap to get to that vote.
Yeah, I think exploring the tension that we always live in and like really being honest about that is important. And the tension here being having the eternal perspective and the temporary perspective, or the temporal perspective, because, we know that God is sovereign, and we know that we are in this world, but not of this world. Mm-hmm. And so there's a tension there that exists, because I'm participating in things that are very temporary in the eternal perspective. Who gets elected does not change at all, one iota, the plan that God has for this world and for this age.
Right.
It's just part of it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change it, though. What is done, is written, is said and done. So that's all. Mm-hmm. So I'm voting and I'm participating because I do care about the temporary. I do care about what's happening now. Mm-hmm. I do care about righteousness and justice, and I do care about policy and all these things. But I can't let my heart be too attached to it that it keeps me from keeping the eternal perspective.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that Christians, especially churchgoers now, especially those who lean right, the thing that's probably disappointed me most about churchgoers in the last 8 years of this last election is that they have put their hope in Trump
100%.
Over Jesus. Yeah. Now, I'll come out and tell you, I voted for Trump, and I'm going to vote for Trump again. And I'll right, big shock. And I'll tell you why in a few moments. But the fact of the matter is that there's so many people that, like, their whole lives, like their whole outlook, their hope was totally hinged on whether or not he makes it to 100%. The office or not.
Yep.
And so when he was in office, everything was fine. And when he's out of office, everything is terrible. Mm-hmm. Again, that's such a temporary perspective, and you're losing sight of the prize, which is the gospel, which is souls won to Jesus, which is a heart transformation from the inside out, and not these temporary things. And so I need to be able to live in both, and I need to really be honest about both and be careful about how much my heart gets stitched to that which is temporary.
Yeah, and I think we were texting before, and we were talking about how we're citizens of heaven and yet citizens of earth, and like how do we navigate that? Because sometimes it's so hard, because being in the earth, we are challenged in the surrounding circumstances we're in, and yet we're called to a much higher purpose than just this earth. And so that doesn't mean we throw our responsibilities here on the planet away. We don't throw away our involvement in our responsibility to vote and be engaged members of society. But yeah, it can be hard because we fix our eyes on Christ, but that doesn't mean that we ignore the world. We ignore what's going on around us. If anything, because we're fixing our eyes on Christ, we should be fixing our eyes also so much on what his mission is, and his mission was to reach the lost. And so if the people around us don't even have the basic necessities they need, it's like, how are we going to reach them?
Right.
It's like, what is it? The hierarchy of needs, right? It's like people aren't going to listen to what you're saying unless their basic needs are also being met. And so we can't just throw this world away and say, the physical doesn't matter. It's all about the spiritual, because very much we are physical beings as well. And so these things, they are important. Josh, you're gonna talk.
No, I'm listening, dude, because you're hitting on like my heartstrings right now, because there was some things like that people had said to me, like believers, and like when it came to like the immigrants that came over and were seeking asylum and things like that, and just hearing some of the things that people had to say about these people that were looking for some security in their lives, looking for help. And if we're called to love and help as Christians, we're called to love everybody, called to love our neighbors. The way that these people were talking about these immigrants being here, it like hurt, like it broke my heart, because I'm like, so because the media told you that these immigrants are coming in seeking asylum, and now all your tax dollars are going here, and now your taxes are going to go up and things like that, and they shouldn't be here. They rape, murder, steal, kill, all that stuff. Well, how do you know? Have you talked to these people? Have you seen these people? Have you met with them? Have you sat down with them? Have you been exposed to their culture at all? And the answer is probably no. And that, I think that's why it hurt, because now these people that have been labeled immigrants and labeled all these things by the media, whoever, well, what if the media labeled them a different way? What if instead of 1,000 immigrants coming into wherever it is, what if it was 1,000 Christians seeking asylum from their country where they're being persecuted? Is your outlook and the way that you treat those people is it different now? Are we, if we're called to give to the poor and our taxes are helping to do that, isn't that something that we should be embracing?
Well, I think that's the problem, is that in a lot of ways, these people just become pawns.
Yeah, it's the weaponization of people.
It's and on both sides.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? Should we have compassion? 100%. We did a clothing drive for migrants last year. They all came with like no warm weather, cold weather gear and clothing, and so we did a clothing drive for them. And I know there were people that were upset about that. You know what I mean? It's like, well, they shouldn't even be here. I'm like, well, they are here. So what are you going to do? Yeah. At the same time, though, these pawns that are being like poured into the country, it does become, because we have such a great social safety net here, it does become a massive strain on little towns, big cities, and I'm sure you see what's going on in New York and a lot of the other big cities where it's like they're like pushing people out of housing, pushing people out of hotels, pushing kids out of schools and all this. So it's hard because, like I said in the beginning, the nature of politics is compromise. And so you have these people that are used as pawns on one side, and then on the other side they're used as pawns to like get people incited and angry and all that. And where's the middle? Where's the compassion? And it becomes so hard. I mean, just the nature of the whole election cycle. Think about it. Hundreds of millions of dollars that are poured into commercials and airtime and ads and all these different things. If they really cared about people, they would find a way to siphon that or galvanize a way to be able to give a good portion of that to feed hungry people, to house homeless people, and all these things. But that's not even the aim. That's not the goal. The goal is power. The goal is getting in office, because then the big money comes in. Then you really go somewhere.
Make some moves. Yeah.
And so it's hard. It's hard, and that's why I think the church needs to be the church. Despite we need the fact that we're Christians and we are of Christ needs to define the way that we go about not only the politics thing, but just how we live our lives, not the other way around. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's the politics that more influences my Christianity than the other way.
That's a great point. That's why. See, you always say things way better. I'm trying to explain them.
You set me up, man. You tee me up, baby. Come on.
Knock them down. But like, because I was driving by somebody's house and I see this giant Trump sign outside their house, and I'm like, I know more about this person just by driving about their house, of who their candidate is, who they believe in more, and I know nothing about if they believe in God or not. You know what I mean? And it's like, I get it. That's a thing. You're campaigning for your guy, whatever you want other people to see and vote for him.
Don't make fun of my dad.
No, it's not your dad, dude. It's not your dad. But I think that's it. Is you because there's also like the Trump is my president, Jesus is my savior flag. Now we're holding these people this Jesus Christ and this potential second-term president on the same level. And because you're right,
identity politics at its finest.
100%.
You know, Jesus was so amazing because, like, I think if he were here today, I'm sure, like, that Trump or Kamala or whoever would want Jesus to come, and it would be under, like, the guise of, like, how they want to honor him, just like everybody did, but it would really just to get his endorsement.
Yeah, of course.
It really would. And what the scripture says about Jesus, that he did not endear himself to any man because he knows what's in the hearts of people. Right. And it's like, so it you know, there's such an objective, there's such a kind of a self-serving objective that happens, but yet if we can get the endorsement of this one or that one or that one, you know, again, it's just harnessing somebody or harnessing a certain group or an identity to get what you want and to get ahead. I have a verse here I wanted to read, and I titled it "Our Response." What should be our response? Because if you think about it, if your guy wins, you're going to be happy and you're going to be blessing, right? Just in a kind of stereotypical way.
Gotcha.
If your guy loses, you're going to be cursing, right? And here's what the scripture says in 1 Timothy 2:1-2. Therefore I exhort first of all that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, and for kings and all who are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and reverence. And so the attitude that we would have is that no matter who our elected officials are, that God is still on the throne. And what's our part? Is our part to just complain and mope and, oh, well, now I got to wait for 4 years to be happy again, you know, or the potential to be happy again? Yep. No. We pray for these people. Yeah. They are the leaders, whether we like it or not. They are in authority. And then some more perspective on that is Daniel 2:21. God controls the course of world events. He removes kings and he sets them up.
Amen.
So we have to understand, too, the eternal perspective, and that God, by his sovereignty, allows both them to be deposed and them to be elected. Yeah. And so if that's the case, it does not mean God is for them. Again, because Christ endeared himself to no man. It just means that is God's will to carry out the events as he wrote from the beginning, or as he spoke from the beginning.
That doesn't always mean something good's going to happen.
No,
you know,
not at all.
The Bible's all about God putting people in situations where something bad happens, but then down the road, that turns into something else.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Something good. And I think that's the perspective that we lose sometimes, is we have this mysticism of like, oh yeah, my guy's in, everything's going to be great. Yeah. Yeah, you know what I mean? It went my way this time, so it means everything's going to be fantastic, exactly like I hoped and dreamed that it would be, exactly what the media told me that it was going to be. Everybody's getting a free car, like all that stuff. Like, but it's not the reality. Reality is, sometimes there's bad seasons. Yeah. As much as there are seasons to sow, there's seasons to reap what you sow. You know what I mean? So, there's a lot of different like thought process around this aspect of, just because it went my way doesn't mean it's going to look great.
And I think so much with politics is we're looking for someone to solve all the issues. You know, we're looking for somebody else to take on the tasks and the problems around us.
Well, that's what they promise, right?
And what often ends up happening is we neglect our own responsibility to be, number one, good citizens, to be involved, to take care and love our neighbor as Christ loves us. Yeah. And so we neglect our responsibility, and Christians are very guilty of this, becoming very ritualistic and religious, showing up to church on a Sunday, and then very much going home and never really making an impact on their community, never caring for their neighbor, never putting someone above themselves, but living just as selfishly as the world, and then pointing the finger as everyone else is the problem, and this candidate's going to solve all my issues. This candidate, if they get into office, like, the church is finally going to take its rightful place in the nation. And it's like, you know, that no person is going to do that. Christ is the head of the church. He will do that. It's his church. He's going to build it. We are partakers. And so we get so distracted from the mission of what we're called to be and what we're called to do, to reach others, to serve others, to care for the orphans and the widows. We throw that all away and say, no, like that candidate's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
They're going to solve all the issues. And yet, where do we stand? Where do we lie?
You mean you don't believe that if you move to a red state, it'll be heaven on earth?
Oh, no. And at the end of the day, like, you feel the effects of that way less. Like, your impact on me in just one-on-one is going to be way heavier than the impact of any politician over the course of my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's in the personal relationships that we have with others. Those effects are going to be felt way more deeply than the effect of any politician that ever comes into the office.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the kingdom now theology, that like basically all of our good, everything that we're going to experience good from God is only now in this life, and it's to be enjoyed and to be chased after. Right. That leads into that, because it's like, oh, if I could just live here, where the policies, or the government agrees with my politics or my, and so we kind of have this idea that we can have this utopia now. If we just lived here, we just lived there. And again, eternal perspective, because later on in Daniel chapter 2 says, in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. And so again, eternal perspective. The things that we are dealing with now are important, but we can never lose sight of the eternal perspective. We can never lose sight that these men that we vote for, these women that we vote for, they are just going to be doing things that affect everybody temporarily. We cannot put our ultimate hope in them. We have to keep our hope in God.
I think so much comes down to, just like I was saying, our character. Like it's like, if we could live those 4 years on mission as believers, the impact the church would have would be way more than any politician could make. Because a lot of the times, so much policy is stalled in government because they're too busy fighting each other. No policies actually end up making it to fruition. Right. And then once a policy comes to, then it's fought by the other side. It's brought to court. And so you get all these legal battles that ensue. And so policy all that much doesn't really change, or it takes a lot to change these massive policies. But if the church could live in true character and what God's called us to be on mission, our impact would be way greater than any politician or any government on the face of the earth. And Titus 3:1-2 says, remind the people to be subject to the rulers and the authorities, to be obedient, to be ready to do whatever is good, to slander no one, to be peaceable and considerate, and always be gentle towards everyone. And so this verse encourages us to be good Christians, or be good citizens, be good believers, be involved, to not slander, to not cause division, to not be and deal with things as the world deals with them and spewing hate and division. We're called to keep a spirit of peace and unity and joy. We're called to a much higher standard. And we've echoed this in so many podcasts already. Yeah. And I almost think that this podcast, it tends to be harder on the Christians. And I love that. I love that we rail against Christians as Christians, because we need to be challenging one another, because we're held to a way higher standard, higher standard. And we need to be living to that standard. And that's not to discourage us and say we got to be perfect, or, to push people away. But like, we just got to do better. We got to do better, because we're falling into all the traps of this world like everybody else is. We're falling into all the traps of policy, politics, and division and identity politics. Yeah. We're falling into it as Christians, sometimes more than anyone. Some of the things I see Christians post, I'm like, oh, God help us. Like, this is the stupidest thing I think I've ever seen in my life. What are you posting this for? And it can just be a really messy road.
For sure. You mind if I pass it over to the booth for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I want to hear from the boys, because we did some episode,
the concern on their face. Their eyes are so wide right now.
Pre-episode texting back and forth, trying to get ready for the episode, little pre-production episode. I love to hear from one or both of the boys in the booth just about what you've heard so far. And what's your take? And if your take is different, I want to hear it. I want to hear where you guys stand on some of this stuff.
Johnny, why don't you go first?
Oh, no, come on.
Stance, what are you asking about stance?
Just everything that you've been hearing so far. What's your take? I can't remember what it is right now, honestly, but I thought you had a really good comment about a certain point that maybe should be brought up today.
Yeah, earlier I had said how the government was spending like tons of funding on immigrants in Ukraine and all that. And when it came down to helping people in Helene, or from Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, they didn't have funding for the American citizens. So it was kind of like how Christians, they put all their energy into, like, say, idolizing Trump or idolizing Kamala. They lose
Kamala, dude. Kamala. Spencer's going to get pissed, dude.
My fault. They lose their faith in God and more important things.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, that was such a great point on the text. I got like triple hearted in our text thread, I think, because it's true because of the nature of politics and the objective not being that they'd be public servants, which would put the emphasis on the public or the people. Now it's about the power. People become pawns. Think about, and great point, John, because actually I read something today. It infuriated me, just the headline. And the headline is basically, how will Hurricane Milton be this year's political October surprise? It's like, dude, people's lives are about to
Seriously,
be
dude.
trashed, devastated, flipped upside down, so much loss of life, homelessness, disease and hunger that all comes with these natural disasters. And some brainiac, for one of these publications says, I wonder how this is going to affect the political landscape.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think that's a great point by JD over there, because this is where we're at. And what a contrast that the church needs to show. What a contrast that believers need to show, that we would not, that this would not be the end all be all of who gets elected on November, is it 5th or 6th? But I think it's the 5th. Whoever gets elected on that
on election day,
that this would not be, just our end all be all of where we put our energy and our thoughts, and the fact that we really objectify and we turn people into like cattle. We turn them into like property. Yeah. We turn them into just fodder for what it is that we're trying to get a fire going on.
I've always said to Melissa, like, my faith is not in any of these candidates. It never has been, never will be. My faith will always be in God, because I know I can trust in Him. I can't believe it. I don't believe a word that any of them say, because every politician comes in and with one platform, and then as the tide swing, it's something completely different, and then you're always let down. I don't want to be let down. Like I voted Republican, I voted Democrat. I go all over the place based off of what I believe is what I want to see in a candidate. And you guys have both brought up like great characteristics of what we as Christians should be, right? And how many of those characteristics is your candidate holding on to? Is that important to you that they have those type of characteristics? I think it should be. Yeah,
well, I'll go back to John's point again. Is that if I'm a victim of one of these hurricanes, and like John was saying, this crazy amount of a budget of billions of dollars is going to some foreign war somewhere. Right. And by the way, this has happened forever. This is not a new phenomenon. This is not a new thing. It's happened forever. Yeah, I'm going to be pretty upset.
Right.
And I'm going to say, wait a minute, I'm a citizen of this country.
Right.
And I voted to elect these public servants, these leaders, to do what's right by the citizens of this country. And they're sending billions and billions and billions of dollars for foreign wars, and they're not caring about this. Right. So this is a real serious issue that should influence people's voting. That should influence where they and I'm not saying this one versus that one, but in general, things like that should infuriate people, and it should influence their voting.
I saw a funny post though. It was like, how many countries are flying aid and supplies down to North Carolina and Florida and Georgia and those affected? Yeah. How many countries are sending aid to the U.S. for the natural disaster that occurred, and yet we pour literally billions of dollars out, billions and billions upon dollars send it out to all these other countries. And I think it's like it really gets your head kind of spinning when you think about it. It's like, man, our precious tax dollars
spent you up. Oh, sorry, Josh.
No, go ahead.
I can't let him off the hook.
Can't let Spence
he
off.
Thought he was getting away.
Spencer, you'll appreciate this.
Yeah, I'll tell that story in a little
We're
bit.
gonna need the context, dude. We're gonna need
Give
the
us some
context.
context.
We're gonna
People
have
are
to
gonna
start a
think
new
really
segment,
poorly
yeah.
of us pretty
Yeah.
soon.
Oh yeah, we'll start a new segment called like Story Time with Spencer.
I love it.
I love it.
You got that ASMR voice, like that radio host voice. You put me right to sleep. I love it.
No, I agree with a lot of what you guys have said, and I kind of something I want to like double down on is that I think that a lot of times we as believers will kind of minimize, the living God down into a political candidate, and will kind of go around and be like, oh, if you don't vote for so and so, then you're less of a Christian, or you are sinning. And I think if you are somebody who does that, like, you are in like some very dangerous waters.
For sure.
And really should stop doing that. And the other thing that I think it kind of ties into is something that I think I had said like off air, but it just kind of comes to mind, is that like if you're somebody who is like big on conspiracy theories and you just refuse to believe it, that it's not true, like if it's proven to not be true, but you just continue to go and go and go.
We talking flat Earth?
It could be flat Earth. It could be like the election thing. People who think Trump really won the last election. That whole thing. But if you just continue to go on that, and we all know objectively that you're wrong, how are any of us supposed to believe you when you now tell us that we should believe in Jesus? Because you've now like emptied your witness clip,
Discredited yourself.
and it's gone. You can't get those bullets back, and now you're just that crazy person. So why should I listen to you when you tell me about Jesus if I'm a non-believer?
That's a great point.
That is
So
a
you gotta
really
be
good
very
point,
careful
Spence.
with some of this stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I think it just as Spencer's talking, it just kind of makes me think about like the healthy balance and the healthy tension that we have to live in, because I think what Spence said, and somebody could hear that and be like, oh, you know what, I should just totally disengage. I don't want to be, I don't want to be kind of pushed in one way or the other. I don't want to be labeled anything. No, we need to engage. We absolutely, but we have to be wise, as Spencer's saying,
wisdom
about that engagement. Because again, what's more important, our political engagement or our witness? Oh, our witness. It's not even a ratio.
Yeah.
It's 100 to 0.
Right.
And so our witness is so important, and man, what a terrible job we can do representing our witness when we're just so all in. I mean, I know people that have called me, texted me, and it's like, I'm losing my mind, Ken. I can't deal with the whole political thing. I can't, like if Trump loses, if Kamala loses, this, that, and the other thing. And I said, well, what are you doing? How are you spending your time? And like, oh, well, I'm just, I'm watching like CNN and Fox all day.
Fox News.
I'm like, okay, there you go. Problem solved. You know what I mean? You're just consumed with this stuff. You're reading every headline, you're reading every story, you're Googling every single, every headline about the topic that you want to find out about. Right. It's like, no, like eternal perspective, living in the healthy tension of the temporary world that we live in.
Because all of those things they're to elicit fear out of you, to elicit some type of emotional response, so that you're connected with this story. I'm connected with the cats and dogs thing. You know what I mean? I'm connected. I keep going back to that because it's just so good.
We got to layer that song into the podcast.
Yeah. But so now you have this emotional connection, and I'm sure there are people that truly are afraid that if Trump doesn't win, or Kamala doesn't win, that there's going to be a world war and all this, because that's all that's being spewed across from all these groups that are telling you, oh, if he doesn't win, the people are going to revolt. You saw what happened in the last election. They stormed the Capitol.
I already have my horn hat and my spear, so I'm good to go, dude. January 6th, watch out.
You're going to need it. You're going to need it.
Romans 13:1, all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God.
Placed there.
And that's the important thing to remember. Yes, vote. Man, even donate if you want to, donate to support your candidate. Go hold signs. I mean, there's a local politician. He's a friend of mine in our city, and I hold signs for him. Why? Because I like the guy and I believe in him. And I think he's good for our city. Get involved, like civic duty and all that. But if it doesn't go your way, your hope's not in it.
Right.
Your hope is not in this person, this man or this woman.
It
Your hope is in.
It should not be.
That's
Definitely
right.
should not be.
Your hope
Don't
is
put
in
it
Christ. I mean, we know people like there's certain people we know, and it's like, oh, I don't want to travel because I feel that with the current administration in the White House, the world is just too unsafe. I said, well, live in your house then. I guess if that's what you want to do. But who's your hope in anyway?
Right.
The sovereign God, where the Bible says that don't fear the one who can kill the body, but the one who can dispose of the soul.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Where's your fear? Where's your trust? Where's your hope? It can't be in politics.
Yeah.
We can engage. We should engage. My opinion, should engage, should be active.
Definitely.
But your hope can't be in it. Your hope has to be in Christ.
There's all the hot button issues, right? Because what if I like this candidate, but they're okay with abortion? Now what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are the questions that I'm sure come up that, and a lot of these people's internally that they're struggling with.
No, absolutely. And it's like you have to separate that and unpack that in your own self. You know what I mean? Because again, it being compromised, there might be things on both sides of the aisle, both sides of the political spectrum, that you agree with and disagree with. And so what you need to do is you need to figure out which ones that your conscience will allow you to support or not support. You know what I mean? And I've heard some challenging words on this. I've heard about, like how even on the church side, like that you would never, and believe me, I don't think you should, personally, I don't think you should support a candidate that is all in on abortion. But I heard a great perspective on it from somebody, and they said, yeah, everybody feels that way until one of the deacon's daughters gets pregnant, or this prominent person gets pregnant. They might not be as against it in that moment. The hypocrisy that can exist, because I'm railing a certain way. Now, I strongly believe that abortion is horrible. It's hard for me to support a candidate that is all in on abortion like that. But at the same time, I can't tell you or you that you're sinful, you're terrible, you're awful, how dare you, because there's going to be compromise on both sides.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This lie that like Trump's a Christian or things like that, I don't believe that at all. I think he's a humanist. He is a populist. He wants to be in the White. I do believe some of his intentions are good, but this whole thing that, he found God, he had his moment with Jesus, I don't really believe that. Just the way that he has and continues to live his life in many ways. Yeah. That doesn't.
Well, he endorsed that Trump Bible. I don't even know what the Bible is, but he endorsed that. I don't know what it's
Trump
called.
The
Trump Bible.
That's all you need to know. But that doesn't preclude me from wanting to vote for him because, again, the compromise. There are what I feel he'll do for the country is better than what the other side will do for the country. And so that's where I'm going. Yeah. But there are a lot of things I don't like about him. And there's a lot of things that I will have to kind of just clear my throat, close my eyes and vote for him anyway. Yeah. And that's just the nature of it. Yeah. We can't be absolutists when it comes to this because there is no absolute for man.
Yeah. And we can't vote with we can't vote emotionally. When you're doing anything just out of your emotions, it's going to lead you astray. So I think really we need to look at the issues, look at the stances, really you don't have to study it. You don't have to spend years trying to understand politics or policies. I mean, we'll never, as soon as we get a grasp on one, it's going to change anyway. So, but it doesn't stop us from our duty of being informed. We need to be informed and then make logical decisions, not emotional or rash decisions or not quick decisions because, one candidate is, Trump is super harsh and he says, outlandish things and Kamala's
gonna build a wall.
Kamala can be a little bit more poised or, whatever. Or one politician's more poised than the other. It doesn't really make sense. If we vote emotionally, our emotions are always going to lead us astray. And that's for both sides, whether it's, who knows, Kamala's laugh versus Trump's laugh or whatever it is. Like, if you just
who shoots a better golf game?
Yeah, oh my God, dude, seriously.
Everybody wants to know who shoots a better golf game.
But if you end up going down those roads and just voting emotionally, it's always going to lead you astray. So put, even if you need to write down the concepts on paper and say, like, weigh them out, literally weigh them out. Okay, if abortion is your hot button issue and that you cannot vote like anybody for that, like Ken was just saying, then that might be your end all be all to vote for Trump.
Absolutely.
If Trump and his stance on the way, we got to build a wall and we got to deport immigrants, and if your heart for the immigrants is so strong that you just cannot, in your heart, in your conviction, you cannot vote for Trump because of what you think he's going to do to the illegal immigrants, well, then you got to vote Kamala. But a lot of this, you need to take an inward an inventory. And we talk a lot about Romans 14 convictions on the podcast, but you got to be led by your convictions and go to the Word, search out the Scriptures, spend time with the Lord, and really let Him transform your heart and how you're going to vote. Because, there is no right or wrong answer to politics. You really can't, you can't even draw that line to say, like Spence was saying, that how can you be a believer if you vote for this politician over this politician because their stance on this issue or that issue? At the end of the day, you're going to find research to back up whatever you want to back up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to vote with your heart, with your conviction, and not just your emotions and not just however you're feeling that day.
And I'll say too, it's a lot is going to fall on, especially as believers, as Christians, is how you act after you vote. Because how many times have we talked about on this podcast, don't put your judgy finger up and say to that person, oh, you voted.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
you
voted,
wrecked the country.
Yeah, exactly. You voted for the other person, the guy that I didn't want. Yeah. And now it turns into like this tumultuous situation with somebody that's a brother or sister. And now, because I see it a lot, and I think we have to fix that part.
That part.
That
part. We have to fix that part. We have to show grace the same way we show grace with any other of these things that we don't agree with, right? That don't line up with the Scripture or anything like that. We have to show that same amount of grace to the person that didn't vote the way that we voted.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we definitely need to correct on our ends as Christians.
Spence, can you do me a favor? I think there's a poster over there on the table. It's a musician poster. Do you see that? Can you hold that up for the booth camera? Can you hold that up? That man right there is Jack Marks. I'm a proud nephew, but that's my uncle. And he wrote a song on that album, Shine Among the Shadow, called People and Things. People and Things. And the quote that really, really jumps out to me of that song says, we should be people that love people. We should be people that use things. Instead, we're people that use people. Instead, we're people that love things. And so we always get it mixed up. We should use things and love people. Instead, we love things and use people. Right. And that's the political environment of today. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Spence, for the lovely display. My Vanna White over there. Vanna White. Thank you for being a beautiful Vanna White. But, I think that just speaks to the environment that we're in, is that we have the priorities all mixed up. Yeah. We've thrown people out. We've cared so much about things and politics and being right that we don't even care about the soul of the person we're arguing with anymore because they don't matter, because they're a thing. Right. They're a thing. You are a tool to victory. You are a tool to victory. And even politicians, the way they treat us, the way that they treat people, they treat us like things. We're pawns on a chessboard. The illegal immigrants, it's not about the immigrants. Believe it or not, nobody cares about them. It's all about being a pawn on a chessboard. Right. Yeah. It's all about, the rhetoric behind it for both sides. It's weaponizing people. At the end of the day, these are people who live in terrible countries with terrible conditions. If you spent a day in their country, you'd be leaving in a caravan too. So it's not their fault that they're seeking to be in the best country on the earth. That they're seeking to be in the best country on the earth. Yeah. It's not their fault. But it's the Democrats' fault for dragging them in and making them a political force, and it's the conservatives treating them like they're worthless pieces of garbage now that they're here. And so these people have become absolutely useless to both sides and useful to both sides in so many different ways. Right. And at the end of the day, it's like they're people with souls. They're people with hearts. They're people with needs. They're people with trauma, with things that they've had to live through. And we, as Christians, we need to care for them regardless of who brought them in or who's kicking them out. And that's our call. You know, unfortunately, people have become things. And that's our biggest problem with the world, is that we no longer have a love for brother. We no longer have a love for sister.
Yeah. No, great point. Thank you, Jack Marks, for your poetry. And that is a fantastic song,
That's
by the way.
That's an excellent song.
Love that song.
We'll link it.
Good segue, I think, into Spence's story. Spence, tell us a story. What happened?
Yes. So a couple weeks ago, or maybe like a month ago, actually, at this point, I was in the process of transitioning into a new job.
You transitioning?
Oh, yeah.
My current job.
I thought you were stopping there, dude. I was worried.
No, sir.
All right.
But yeah, so my old manager wanted to throw a little going away party for me. You know, very kind of him. And we went to a little brewery over at Patriot Place, and so a number of my colleagues joined, and we, you know, talking. Everything was fine. I was the only black person there, just, you know, to paint the picture for you.
That helps us get the picture.
And this person, who I guess I'll cut her break and not put her name out there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's fine.
She gets to talking about politics, which clearly made everybody a little bit uncomfortable because it was kind of just unprompted. Mm-hmm. And she starts saying something about Kamala Harris, and
Kamala, dude, get it right.
My bad.
Whatever.
Spence, you're supposed to appreciate this.
And then she's sitting next to me, and she turns and like puts her hand like on my shoulder.
Oh.
And she goes, "Oh, Spencer, you'll appreciate this."
Oh my God, so uncomfortable.
And I think everybody but her, like, I think we all kind of exchanged this look of like, "Oh, she shouldn't have said that." And she didn't get it, and she just kept going.
White people would do that. They'll feel guilty for other white people, Spencer.
It was rough.
Oh man, see, I didn't even know the hand on the shoulder part.
Hand on the shoulder
That took it to a whole nother level.
That makes it worse.
And that is what we in the corporate world call a microaggression. The more you know.
That's so good.
Yes.
Oh,
so good.
Knowing is half the battle.
No, he's definitely
I'm still of the opinion that you really should have played like super ignorant. Like what? Why would I appreciate that?
Yeah, can you explain what you mean by that?
Explain to me this.
She would have gotten tongue-tied in about
3
seconds flat.
I wouldn't be getting invited to the after-work drinks again after that one.
You might not want to go back.
That's true too.
Wasn't it your going away party?
It was, yeah.
So it didn't matter anyway. You weren't getting invited anymore.
You may become the example for every stereotype that's out there.
Man.
You know, Stretch, you'd appreciate this. You'd appreciate this.
You could appreciate this. That's
so
crazy.
now everybody knows we weren't being racist this whole time on the pod.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody else was. And we were just piggybacking on that stupidity.
For sure.
What a
For
disaster.
sure.
Oh man.
Spence, we're sorry, dude.
Well, let's get to what's on the tables, because I see new things, and I'd like to start with the guy who's been away for a little while. What do you got? What some kind of frame over there? Can you hold that up for your camera, please? What is that? Oh, there goes
Sauron.
There
dude.
goes Sauron.
Mr. Westport.
So this is Mr. Westport. This has history to it. Yes, there it is. There's some more context. This has history to it.
I gotta hold it lower, maybe like this.
Yeah, this has history. Tell us about this.
All right, so if you watched last episode, which you can totally catch on
Last
YouTube. Last two episodes. I haven't watched the last one yet, I guess. All right, well, you've seen these around, and you must be curious as to, number one, why is my face on a stick? Number two, why do I look like I'm 10? And this was from high school. All right, I went to Westport High School.
So that's why you look like 10.
I went to Westport High School. I was a senior in high school here, still looking like 10.
Geez.
And I participated in Mr. Westport, which is like a kind of like a mock kind of funny pageant that guys participate in, and it's just meant to be a total goof thing. And this was my face on a stick for when the family came and were supporting me.
Oh, we just thought you were incredibly vain.
Oh no!
That there was 50 of these things lying around in a box.
There was so many of those.
And unfortunately,
in this box.
to my demise, my mother kept them in a box. Just so happens to be in the other room that Ken found. And so this was a collage of images from that night, which I, in the spirit of being vain, I did win, by the way. And so I'm crowned Mr. Westport 2013. Enter Claptrack. Thank you very much.
Can't take that out of your time, out of your history, man.
And here are the pictures to prove, which I didn't even put this here. I came in the loft and I started yelling at Ken for putting this here.
Wasn't me.
It ended up, again, the same mother who put this in a bin next door for these guys to find, put this on my my little table for them to find. So, that's what's on my table. Otherwise, I got the Owl City Fireflies album, which was an iconic part of my high school days in my childhood. And in honor of Rings of Power finishing, I got a little Sauron action figure, dude.
Yeah.
Do we need to refer to you as Mr. Westport from now on?
That's right. Yeah. It's Daddy Westport to you, dude.
Daddy Westport.
Daddy Westport. Yeah, dog.
What do you got, Josh? I love what you got, man. That is so good.
Oi me, snoy.
Me hoy, man, boy. That's we got some Doodle Bob.
Doodle
Let me get
Bob.
Doodle
Dude,
Bob.
the people are gonna appreciate this.
Doodle Bob holding the pencil, dude.
So good.
I am we were talking a little bit beforehand, and I think you guys might know now I am very much into SpongeBob. Like, I can probably quote most episodes. And so
You're a man of culture.
That
I am
also
a man
might
of
be as
culture.
divisive as the Halloween question, dude. Some questions aren't into
Not into
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob?
That is true.
Well, they don't have to come over my house.
That is true.
You can go watch whatever you want to watch. But so I am super into SpongeBob. I thought this guy was cool. I picked him up at a retro expo. And nice 3D printed Doodle Bob.
Love that.
And yeah, man, I love SpongeBob. So, I mean, now Jeremiah's into SpongeBob. So there's a lot of SpongeBob being watched in my house. So
Nice.
yeah, Nickelodeon can sponsor the pod.
Good luck with that.
I think we need a few more followers before we get up to that
we'll get
level. But
we're close.
all right, I got in the spirit of our conversation today, and because it's election season,
Cancel, dude.
I have Trump Funko. Now, all full disclosure, I don't know if this actually really exists because I bought this on Temu.
How fitting for Temu to
Full
sell Trump
disclosure.
figures.
Unlicensed.
Because I think whoever makes Funko, I don't know, they'd probably have to get canceled if they made a Trump. So this could be like the irony, it's
It's
probably,
not Funko, it's Fungo.
It was probably made in China.
Temu.
It was probably made in China. And
China.
it's probably counterfeit, but I saw it on Temu, and I'm like, I'm going to pick it up. And so, yeah, here's little Trump Funko in spirit of election season. I don't hold this up as any endorsement for any candidate, I promise.
You already said it.
Oh, yeah, but I am voting
said it a million times.
I am voting for Trump, though.
You already said that.
I am voting for Trump.
Well, in that vein, I think we're going to go around the room, and everyone's going to say who they're voting for. Ready?
Ken, that's a great table, Ken. One of the best tables. Some say the best table ever.
Abu.
Oh, I love that one. Shut him down like a dog.
So that's it, man. So that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. It was so topical. I'm so glad you had that.
Yeah, I got to bring it out.
Ken's
So
part of
glad
the
you had
MAGA clan.
MAGA.
He loves when I say MAGA.
MAGA.
It's a great pipe. You got a great pipe on that desk.
Wow, dude. Ken's got a great pipe.
All right, I think
man.
it's time to wrap.
Yeah, it's time to get out of here.
Put a bow on this.
Yeah. I mean, like we said at the beginning, like it's a topic it's really important, and it's very divisive, can be very divisive.
Yeah.
And we just hope that the listeners, you guys take an opportunity to really reflect on it, to really get in the word and think about who you're going to vote for and how you are going to react either way.
Yeah.
So just take some time, be prayerful about it, but and trust and know that whatever happens is part of God's plan.
That's it.
And he controls the day either
Absolutely.
way. So
That's it.
yeah. Any last words from the booth?
The booth.
All right, we out.
Trump 2024.
See ya.
Peace.
Peace.
The Not Safe for Sunday podcast was recorded in the loft. You can find us on social media at NSFS Podcast. Audio editing by Spencer Barrowman. Video editing by John Walsh. If you'd like to join us for a Sunday service, you can find us at Conquerors for Christ Church, located at 972 Reed Road in North Dartmouth, Massachusetts.